Board of Commissioners to order the April 2nd, 2026. First item on our agenda is the approval of our meeting, which was held 2 days ago. The minutes are still in draft form, so we will postpone action on that. Item number 2 is to discuss Haida House this morning. The commission has decided in administrative session not to continue Haida as a portion. Haida's operation as a portion of Riverside Rest Home's operations, and there are a number of reasons for this. First of all, number one, as most people don't realize, the county delegation did not vote for a county budget this year. They rejected the county commissioner's budget in its entirety for a number of reasons. One being the deficit of Riverside Rest Home. What people don't understand is the Haida operation is included in Riverside's operating budget. So that deficit has been climbing steadily, and a lot of that is due to Haida. There's been a lot of changes to our healthcare system in this country post-COVID. During COVID, if you all remember, the problems they had in New York when Governor Cuomo was talking about putting people back in nursing homes with COVID, and there was a lot of deaths that occurred from that. A lot of changes have been made to the healthcare system since then. People are the actual census at Riverside dropped. We used to have a full house. People didn't want to put their loved ones in nursing homes anymore. They were scared. They thought they were going to pass away, being moved to nursing homes. So our census at Riverside has steadily decreased as a result of that, forcing the deficit, its operating deficit, to be higher. Along with that, hospice care shifted where everybody didn't trust institutions, so they were taking care of people longer at home. And as a result of the private hospice agencies providing that care longer at home, forced the deficit to be much higher with Haida as a standalone operation. Okay, so let me just give you some quick numbers. The operation of Haida cost almost $4 million a year to operate. We took in only $800,000 in revenue through through Medicare. That deficit is made up 100% by the property tax. So because of that deficit and the continuing accounting deficits of Riverside, the county delegation was very concerned and wouldn't pass the county budget. Now, under state statute, if they don't take action, the county delegation fails to adopt a budget, the county commissioner's budget goes into effect. However, during that debate, we have an ICE operation at the jail. Almost half the delegation was upset with the operations of ICE nationally. And as a result of half the delegation being upset about the deficit and the other half being upset about the loss of the continuing relationship with ICE. And as a result of that publicity, ICE has been removing folks from our facility, which has cut drastically into our revenue. So we were relying on that ICE revenue to help offset the costs, the continuing operating the deficits of Haida and of Riverside. With ICE now pulling people out of the jail, we have a loss of revenue that's occurring. As a result of all of that, and the fact that the county delegation refused to pass a budget, this thing he was going to follow with.
No, sorry.
Moody's, who sets our credit rating for this county and all municipalities across the country, reduced our credit rating, basically saying that we're broke. The county's broke. We have no cash reserves. They dropped our rating from an A3 rating to a Baa2 rating. Now that's a lot of technical jargon most of you folks don't understand, but what that means is in the future, the cost of this operation will increase dramatically as a result of the interest we have to pay because the county operates broke and we borrow money from banks to operate, which means that the cost of that interest is going to increase because we're not insolvent, but we're close to being insolvent. So with that said, we haven't been able to maintain an adequate census at Hyder for a number of reasons. When we first took over Hyder, first of all, let's back up a little bit, do a little history here. We had 3 different operators at Hyder when we first, I was very, very proud of getting that facility built here on the county complex. I was involved in all 3 negotiations with all 3 different entities. 2 of them were nonprofit and 1 was a for-profit organization. And every time they all 3 failed miserably. They lost millions and millions of dollars with its operation. We had contacted 24 hospice agencies throughout New England when the 3rd one failed, and none of those hospice agencies were willing to take the building or take the operation over. Now, so the county stepped up as the last resort, as a provider of last resort, and we were congratulated by the local press at the time for taking that courageous step because the healthcare delivery system was changing back then and it's changing now. Palliative care that we offer was just in its infancy when these things were first started many years ago. But as one county commissioner and hadn't been, I was chairman of the board then, I'm still chairman of the board, at least for now. I was very proud to have that facility located here on the county complex. But with these changes with the delivery system, hospice agencies now are taking care of folks at home longer than they used to. And frankly, people in most cases, not in all, but in most cases, want to pass away at home with their loved ones if they can. So the agencies that we were relying on initially to allow for what's known as GIP in Hyder, we're keeping people home longer. And that 5-day stay that the federal government was reimbursing us for, they were coming through the door. Basically what's happening there, folks are coming through the door and passing away with us within a few hours. That model is just unsustainable. It is unsustainable. And as sad as it is for the commissioners to try to take some other action here, the good news is we're going to try to replicate that service that we provide now at the nursing home. Now, we've always provided hospice care at the nursing home throughout our history. So we're going to try to, we're definitely going to continue to try to provide that service at Riverside. On top of all of that, the medication costs that has gone up tremendously. I mean, we used to take care of folks for $100, $150 a day, $200 a day for their medication costs. Now our medication costs are running $750, $800 a day without any additional reimbursement by the federal government. So when you add all these things in, and our daily census in the last few years has only been 3.3 individuals. So we're manning the operation on a 24/7. It's a 24/7 operation. It's not any fault of the employees. The employees are there have done a wonderful job. I've always said they've done God's work there, and I'm still of that belief. However, there are some financial realities that are bumping into the best of intention, and the financial reality is that the county has, with that drop in our bond rating, without the support of the county delegation, for the continuing deficits of Riverside, that's where the deficit of Hyder is. Hyder is a big component of the deficit of the operations of Riverside. The fact that we're already above the property tax caps, the county commissioners have no will to raise taxes any further than we are. We're already over the budget caps of 3 cities and 1 town. The delegation has absolutely no appetite for raising any more taxes, property taxes. They just don't have the appetite for it. So with all of these things happening and the types of residents that we're getting at Hyder have changed a bit too as well. I mean, they're just coming to us, they're just dying quicker. I hate to say that, but it's the facts because they're staying home longer. And when you really think of people, if they can stay home, want to stay home with their loved ones. And so the delivery system throughout our country, the healthcare delivery system is just changing dramatically. We see it at Riverside, and the federal government has tightened down on regulations, and the state on regulations as to eligibility to be institutionalized. They want people staying home as long as possible because of costs. So I can't stress though the dysfunctional budget meetings that we've had. We went through a 2-month process with the county delegation. We had 5 meetings with the subcommittees of the delegation, all supporting the commissioner's proposed budget. And then at the last minute, they pulled the rug out from under us without any warning, saying that they would not vote for the budget. And that one, it was practically unanimous. It was I think it was a 24-25 vote to 5, not to support the county's budget. They wanted the county commissioners to do something about the deficits of Riverside. They wanted us to get rid of ICE, which would have just exacerbated our revenue problem if we got rid of ICE. It was a $9 million contract. The federal government reads the newspapers. ICE has decided, has reduced our population as a result of that, and looking to other places to house these folks because of that, the political dynamics of that. So we've got a lot of dynamics that are out of our control going on here. But with the final blow being Moody's adjustment in our bond rating, we dropped to that bond rating adjustment is going to have long-term impact on this operation, not only for this year, but in future years. We have to repair that bond rating. It has to get repaired. And there's only 2 ways to repair that. You either have to cut expenses or you have to raise revenue. And because the federal government and the way we're reimbursed for Riverside and for hospice care doesn't allow us to repair this deficit. It just doesn't. Okay, it's a hard, cold reality, but it's the facts. Now, we're going to try to transfer that operation back into Riverside where we used to provide hospice care. We're going to renovate some rooms and continue to provide that care, but it will have an effect on employment. There are going to be some job losses. And let me point out that this is just the beginning of those job losses. County commissioners are going to be looking at other departments for additional changes in the way we're going to have to do business to repair the financial position of the county. So I wish that the delegation would have been a little less vocal with their objections, but they were very specific. And the other thing that they said they were going to do is they were going to start the budget process immediately the next year, meaning they wanted further cuts because they didn't want property taxes being raised above the property tax caps that were established in the 3 municipalities. We just can't afford at this point to start a budget process with the turmoil that's going on in our country right now. There's tremendous turmoil coming out of HHS in terms of how they're going to function. And we rely heavily on federal revenue and the state to help fund I'm sorry, should have shut that off earlier. To fund our operations here. Most of the county's operation is made up of revenue that we receive from other levels of government, over half of it. When that revenue goes away, there's no alternative but to raise property taxes. And there's just no stomach to do that. So, with all that said, the commissioners have decided in administrative session to close the Hyder House down as a freestanding operation, move its operations in to Riverside, and we're going to ask the private sector if we're going to reach out again to the private sector, which includes our local hospitals potentially, to see if they have any interest in with this ever-changing revolving system, whether they have any ideas of and including the hospice providers themselves, whether they have any ideas of what we can do about the continuing palliative care here in Strafford County. But we're going to do it ourselves with as many resources as we have. It just becomes economy of scale. The Hyder to stand as a freestanding alone operation with the cost to operate it with and with the depleting revenue. It's insolvent. That's just the way it is. So we will continue to keep everybody abreast as to our efforts to not only replace its operation, we're already started that process with Riverside. We have a number of other things that are happening that I can't discuss at this point regarding the future of elder care here in Strafford County. The elder care system is under tremendous pressure by the federal government and the state government. As you all know, we tried a few years back to build a brand new nursing home. We need a new nursing home desperately. Had we got our new nursing home, Hyder probably would have been absorbed into that operation anyway, because our buildings are old and they're highly inefficient as it relates to present day methods of delivering healthcare. So we're going to be meeting with other elected officials and department heads to go over their budgets and to make some additional cuts in the future. But this one here will have the greatest impact, and we have to do so now to repair the county's financial position. So, with that said, do my colleagues want to add anything?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, to expand upon the increase in above the tax caps.
Right.
We've managed for
15 years,
15 years to stay within the tax caps of the cities and towns. This year we just couldn't.
Right.
And you know, I'm sure that factored into a large number of the no votes on the budget. And just to accentuate more of the surprise, I attended every subcommittee meeting, every executive committee meeting, well, the executive committee meeting. And the budgets that were proposed in the 4 separate subcommittee meetings were all passed with a rather substantial vote, you know, like 5-1, or, you know, I think the worst was 4-2. At the executive committee meeting, the budget passed 8-4. And then 10 days later, without any intervening meetings or any intervening discussion,
Right.
All of those votes, or a large number of those votes, switched to no votes, which was a total surprise to all of us who attended the meeting. And
I've been a county commissioner 44 years here. I've never ever experienced a situation like this where the county delegation refused to adopt a budget. That has never happened before. And as Administrator Bauer just pointed out, we had a $500,000 cost shift by the state on Medicaid to our budget with 2 days notice. Prior to our budget being published. So we had no ability, no time to try to figure out how we were going to absorb that $500,000.
And that $500,000 is what translated to us breaking the tax cap.
Right, breaking the tax caps, right? So what's happening, but people don't understand that in New Hampshire is considered to be a rich state as it relates to Medicaid. We're a 50-50 state. What that means is for every dollar that's spent on Medicaid, of any type of Medicaid, the feds pay 50 cents on every dollar that's spent. And in New Hampshire, for long-term care, the other 50 cents on every dollar is borne by counties, by county governments and Medicaid. So whenever there's adjustments made to that system, the counties have to pick up the tab, and we do that through the property tax. Now, we have a tendency in New Hampshire to brag about the fact that we have no broad-based taxes. We have no income tax, we have no sales tax, we brag about that all the time. But services still need to be delivered. And in the case of New Hampshire, we're relying heavily on the county property tax to help balance the state budget. That's what it boils down to. It's the state's responsibility to come up with that 50 cents that I just mentioned to you. But because they have no revenue sources, no stable revenue source besides cigarette taxes and liquor taxes and business profits taxes, they have no ability to pay this bill. So they transfer that bill to the county, and we are ordered to pay it. And we raise that money through the property tax. And when they did that to us, that drove us through the cap. And I think that it's going to continue. It's not going to get any better because they have no revenue sources. The state's got somewhere between a $300 and a $500 million deficit, and they're looking at coming up with ways to get somebody else to pay the bill. New Hampshire's famous for that, trying to get someone else to pay our bills. It's been that way through Democratic and Republican administrations. That hasn't changed. Although this year there's a little more turmoil than normal because of the things that are happening in Washington that we have no control over. So we're the tail of a big wild animal. That's what it boils down to. And as long as that animal continues to act wildly, these are the types of actions that need to be taken by local officials. Also, I need to point out, and this is important for you to know, that the state law prevents the county commissioners from operating in a deficit. We're not allowed to do that. We're just not allowed to. It's against the law. If we operate in deficit, 5 taxpayers can petition the court, just 5 taxpayers. And I can assure you half that delegation will be the first ones to sign up to remove the county commissioners from office. It only takes 5 people. So we've got that looming over our heads as well. So there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that we're going to have to make. And this is just one of a few more that are going to have to be made. But I just want to say to the staff that I've greatly appreciated their work over the years. I think Hyder's done tremendous work. We're going to try to absorb as many of those staff as possible across the street in the nursing home. And we're going to reach out again to the hospice providers and to the local hospitals to ask them for additional help. You know, palliative care is an interesting animal. It's only been around a few years, probably a couple of decades at the most. I know many years ago in my own family, most of my family all passed away at hospitals because palliative care didn't exist. And they would, I can remember when my dad died, they opened up a couple of hospital rooms next door to him so the family could stay with him for a 24-hour period. And they really didn't they tried to do the best based on the technology they had at the time, but I've lived it, so I know. And I'm sure a lot of you have lived it as well. So it's as heartbreaking as this is, we're going to try to continue to provide palliative care. It's just going to be in a different setting. And as we go through this tumultuous time, hopefully something will settle out and cooler heads will prevail, and we'll come up with some ways to have the that process or that delivery in our healthcare system continue. And we're going to try to do our best to maintain that here. But as a standalone operation, I'm afraid we're going down the same road that the other three providers went down. We're millions and millions of dollars in debt. And it's no fault of the employees, it's no fault of management. It's the nature of the reimbursement systems that we're functioning under. So
I'd like to also thank all of you. You're special. You are so special. And my heart is with all of you. And I'm so sorry.
So, you colleagues have anything to add? No? All right. Chair's going to declare a 2-minute recess so you folks will gather your thoughts and then we'll get back to the agenda. How's that? Chair's going to move on to item number 3. We have a couple of items there that are coming up, events that are published on our website and on the agenda. Commissioner Levitt had to leave. He'll be back in about 15 minutes.
No, it doesn't.
So, do we have any old business or new
No.
business? Any old or new business, Mr. Bauer?
No, sir.
Okay. Item 5 is questions or comments from the public related to the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or on the commission?
Would like to make a comment.
Sure. First of all, you have to identify yourself, my friend.
My name is Colby Williams, and good morning. I'd like to thank each of you for your service to our community, for the difficult decisions you've been tasked with, and reserving the time now to listen. I'm here to speak on the possibility of Hyder Hospice House closing, as well as its importance due to last week's comments on its deficits and the uncertainty of department cuts. I would first like to note that time is our most valuable asset. Hospice philosophy conveys this better than almost any other part of healthcare. When a person is terminally ill, the goal is not treatment, it is symptom management, comfort, and dignity in death. It is what lets families spend what precious moments they have left with their loved ones in peace instead of remembering them in agony. Hyder is described as the region's first and so far only inpatient hospice residence in Strafford County, with 24-hour nursing and support staff specially trained for end-of-life care. It is not the same as a standard hospital stay, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Hospitals are essential but are designed for curative care. Despite this, when hospice beds disappear, hospitals become the default location for end-of-life care. While they may be well equipped to care for patients, there still needs to be an expertise in end-of-life care. These are not interchangeable missions. Hyder not only accepts patients from the hospital, but also terminally ill patients from home who may need symptom management. This provides families the opportunity to be present with their loved ones rather than carrying the responsibility of being their caregivers during one of the most difficult moments in their lives. And this is not a marginal issue in Strafford County. The 2025 aging profile for Strafford County shows that over a fifth of its residents are above the age of 60. These are not just numbers. These are our grandparents, our parents, our neighbors, people who've contributed and spent decades paying into Strafford County taxes. Many of them are already facing different terminal illnesses. While there may be uncertainty about department cuts, we can be certain that people in Strafford County will continue to need hospice care. Terminally ill patients will continue to die, old or young. And the decision to close Hyder Hospice could mean for Strafford families the difference between witnessing an agonizing death to getting a chance for a peaceful goodbye to their departing loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Colby. I don't disagree with anything you said.
Very eloquent and absolutely accurate.
Yeah, you're very accurate. It's not gonna go away. It's yeah, I think that it's important though, that's to recognize that there are things that hopefully are gonna occur in the future. That may shed some light on palliative care here in the county. You're right, the hospitals usually are the default. position, we're gonna reach out to them and ask them if there's any way we could possibly, come up with some kind of, relationship, that, but in the meantime, we're still stuck with some harsh realities. I can't. We just don't have any, the county's broke. I mean, that's just what it boils down to, and it's not gonna be a matter of simply, you know, cutting back on paper clips and simple things like not buying coffee. You know, we have structural problems here that are of a magnitude. I don't take this decision lightly. It bothers me tremendously.
I'm grateful for that.
I have spoke multiple times to students that came to Hyder that were getting their nursing degrees at the university at Hyder, about the importance of palliative care. It's greatly personal to me. I lived it with my family for many years, and we've got to come up with a new solution. But it can't be just the county carrying that burden, testing with you know. Funny thing here is that these hospice agencies, they're trying to survive as well. We have a dynamic going on here that's frankly insane. They're trying to survive and provide services at home, which is where most people want to stay if they can. They're under tremendous financial pressure, given the nature of what's happening with the administration's policies right now. So they're under tremendous pressure to stay afloat. And frankly, with the changes in the cost of medication, that's a tremendous contributor to this, along with the fact that they're just keeping people home longer. When we first opened Hyder, we had a full house. We were breaking even. We were happy to break even. And then the erosion through COVID began, the financial erosion. We were able, as Ray had pointed out earlier, that we were able to stay within the budget caps of the municipalities all those years. And we're no longer capable of doing that. And not all things are about money. I would agree with that. Okay, I understand that more than anybody. However, it would be irresponsible if the county, no matter who sits here, whether it's me or someone else, to drive the cost of this operation up to the point of insolvency. I just can't allow that to occur. County commissioners can't allow that to occur. And as I said, we'd be removed from office simply with 5 taxpayers filing a petition to have us removed. And then what will happen is you'll have the reaction to that would be even greater. The damage would be greater because they would just come in and wholesale get rid of things because they'd have a mandate to do so and a court order to do so. So,
And I understand the pressures that you're under. I just wanted to shed more light on the issue because this is a tremendous loss.
oh, there's no question. And we're going to try to soften that loss by providing the service at Riverside, which we used to do in the past. And you know,
And I think we need to be clear that we won't be able to exactly replicate those
No.
services. But the majority of our patients, clients, residents at Hyder a lot have shifted from GIP to respite. And, you know, the respite can be provided. GIP obviously, you know, isn't going to be that likely to be able to be provided. You know, we recognize that. And we also recognize it would be a fallacy for us to say we need a new nursing home because Riverside's inadequate, and then say that we can manage transferring people from the most beautiful, aesthetically beautiful situation, meaning Hyder, to a building that we said publicly is inadequate to do, you know, in its operation due to inefficiencies in staffing and inefficiencies in layout of the building and everything else. So, I mean, I think what we're trying to say is that we would do the best we can, to replicate some of those services. To say that Riverside is another Hyder is just not
Yeah,
accurate.
it's not.
It's absolutely not accurate. And so I just want to make sure there's a clarification of that. But I mean, I went through it with my own mother. Without having a hider house and spending the days at Wentworth Douglas in the ER. For whatever reason, they let her stay there and let me sleep there. And her waking up in the middle of the night screaming and so I mean and this isn't about me. Okay, so I just bring that circumstance up to let you know that I understand a lot of those things you said because I've lived it personally. It's a little different with my dad, but not with my mom. Yeah, so I get it. I think that's why I worked. George and myself, who were here at the time that we opened Hyder, worked so hard to get it licensed because we didn't qualify as a traditional hospice house. Because a traditional hospice house, according to CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services requirements, is we'd have to have a hospice presence in the community. So we wrote to every hospice that was licensed in New Hampshire and offered them the building for free if they would simply run up. And I didn't even get a letter back. Not only was there no interest, but nobody even responded. And I think it was, after Amedisys failed, as the last provider, we thought we had a better idea to keep the services available by not forcing a hospice provider to change their hospice to our hospice, which we didn't have anyway. But that's why we believed that the three other hospices failed, because if you were on one hospice, but it wasn't the hospice that ran Hyder, the hospice that ran Hyder forced you to convert that resident to their hospice before you could be admitted to the hospice house. And we felt that that was the reason for the poor census. That if we opened it up to every hospice that had an interest in having their resident, and almost every one of the residents that comes into Hyder has a previous involvement with a hospice agency. Every once in a while, they'll be admitted when they're admitted, but that doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, they already have a hospice relationship. But we felt that because we would allow them to continue that hospice relationship with the hospice they had, that bond that forms with caregivers, during time of need, we thought that would enhance the population of Hyder, and it did. For quite some time, we actually had both sides open as, because I've been the administrator. It's my license that runs Hyder, and for a period of time, we almost didn't have. Well, we pretty much didn't have room for respite because we were all GIP. When Hyder when the county first took it over, and the GIP census has dropped tremendously, and it's also very difficult to staff Hyder. The nurses need to have unique skills, which they do, and they do a great job with that. And the dilemma is when everybody needs to know what their schedule is. We post schedules that we should be posting, and I think we do by and large 2 weeks in advance. I can't tell you, well, I don't think anybody can tell you what the population of Hyder will be 2 days in advance. So there's times when we've had because of the nature of people needing to know what their lives are, so know what they're working week after week. And when there's times when we've had no residents, not very often. There's times when we've had more staff than residents. Again, not very often, but it does happen. And it's difficult, to contemplate what it's going to be like I said, 2 days from now. I mean, I call every night at 11 o'clock to get report from the nursing home, and I hear about Hyder. I haven't missed a night in almost 40 years. The point being that I could leave work 4:30, 5 o'clock. I could call at 11 o'clock, and the census could be half of what it was when I left. I mean, anybody that's worked there understands that. And then on the other hand, it could be, we still have night admissions. So, the census could go up. It's just a very difficult place to run and have a predictable outcome of a budget. But we used to break even. I mean, and that was the goal. That was when the delegation voted unanimously to open Hyder. The projection was that we would break even, or even if we lost some amount of money. And, I don't know how I can be responsible for the changes in the healthcare system, but personally speaking, I consider the fact that Hyder needs to close as a personal failure. I'm not sure how much of that personal failure I can control, but I can tell you that isn't the way it was when we opened.
Right.
It's just the whole system has changed. And unfortunately, we have to respond to that change. Anybody wanted to have any idea of what the budget meeting was like that we went through, it's posted on the county website. Watch it. And the commissioners and we come up with a proposed budget, the delegation reviews it. If you ever wanted to understand the pressures that the commissioners are under, besides the ones of the bond rating and those things, watch that meeting. I know it's an hour and a half or 2 hours of your life that you'll never get back, but watch to see the dysfunction of that meeting, understanding that the 5 prior meetings, the 4 individual subcommittees, I know I'm repeating myself, but this is an important thing to grasp. And the executive committee, which makes the final recommendations to the full delegation, just count the votes and look at who voted in what way. It's all on tape.
Right. And I'm not trying to say that you guys aren't under pressure. Like
It's not even that. I mean, the bottom line here is what happens is in dealing with an issue like this, the county has a mission that's outlined by state statute. And Ray and I, for many, many years, with different boards of commissions, have always tried to think out of the box and do things differently, beyond the mission, okay? There are a lot of politicians today that says that the county's grown beyond its mission. Its mission is very focused. It's outlined by state statute. The things that Ray and I and other boards of commissioners have tried to put together over the years is outside that mission, okay? And because of that, we are attacked politically by mostly one party in particular, because they say that you're operating, you're doing things that are costing the taxpayers money, which should be handled by someone else. You guys shouldn't be doing it. And that constant wrangling that we hear, okay, eventually took its toll on the delegation by having them not vote for a budget. It hasn't happened, like I said, ever. I was on the delegation in the 1970s, okay? Never happened then. I've been here since 1982, okay, and we never had that problem. We were always able to sit down and work out whatever differences there were and try to figure things out. There was no will to do that this time. Absolutely none, like zero, okay, zero will. We had half the delegation fighting about ICE. We had the other half of the delegation fighting about the deficits of Riverside, which Hyder makes up a huge portion of. To the extent that I've been a registered Democrat. I'm elected by the Democratic Party. The Democrats had a caucus and wouldn't even let me attend. They threw me out of it. So that gives you some idea of what we're faced with.
Right, and I'm not trying to say that you're not. I just wanted to shed more light on the issue. I think this topic needs to be spoken about more. And as well as how difficult it will be to implement hospice and palliative care into hospitals and nursing homes.
I don't disagree with you.
As you said before, there's an expertise that the nurses at Hyder Hospice have, and the hospitals and the nursing homes will need it if you guys are forced to implement this. And I'm sorry, this is a tremendous loss for the county.
You know, it'd be one thing if we were a $500 million operation or a $600 million operation or a $1 billion operation like most hospitals. When you're that large, you can absorb losses of this nature, but we're just not that big. Okay, we're an $80 million operation. When you have multiple million operating deficits of millions and millions of dollars, right now we're almost 9 million, makes up approximately 10% of the budget. It's just, we just don't have the ability to absorb it. That's been, and this has not just happened. This has been going on for a while now. This erosion has been taking place over many, many years. And it just so happened that the state, once the state passed back more Medicaid costs to us, that was the final straw. That's the straw that broke the camel's back.
They broke their promise.
Yeah, they broke their promise. They, even during the Biden administration, when Biden during COVID pumped more, when I talked about earlier about the 50-50 share here in New Hampshire, Biden pumped more of the federal share he took out, I think it was 52%.
56%.
56% of the share. The state took the money. The state stole the money. They took the money to balance their own budget, even though the counties were the ones that were making up that cost. They took the money from us. Okay.
We had to go back to the legislature 2 years later to
Ask them to reimbursed.
to get, well,
Reimbursed.
at first we asked them just to stop doing it.
Stop doing it. Right.
And they, after 18 months, they stopped, and now then we went back in the last session to get our money back that I testified that was stolen from us. And then they turned around and raised our contribution.
Right. You have to understand that cities and towns and counties are creatures of the state. They're creatures of the state, okay? And in New Hampshire, we just use the property tax to support these things. And that's the reality of it. And when the legislature decides to take certain actions against its children, because that's what counties and cities are. We're children of the state. We only exist to do one thing. We only exist for one reason. That's to provide services on behalf of the state. So the state's policies have a tremendous effect on how counties operate, okay? Because they're the parent and we're the child. And so it's just almost like child labor, like we used to have. They passed child labor laws a long time ago. You couldn't do that, but you have to look at it in that regard. We're not a free standalone government. We can't do whatever we want. We're just children. We're creatures of the state, and the state sets up certain parameters for us to operate under it. And when you walk out of those parameters, like we did with Hyder, you run a risk. Now, we did so. As I mentioned earlier, we were congratulated by local media at the time for taking a bold step. and trying to address death as well as we could, because nobody else could do it. They were losing millions. In the beginning, we were doing well. But this erosion has taken place for a long, long time. It's not just happened this year. The erosion's been taking place, especially during COVID and post-COVID. And now those decisions, I know Ray considers it a personal failure, so do I. However, we don't control the state, and we don't control the federal government. And we're so reliant upon them at this point. And the hospitals, frankly, we don't control them. We don't control the delivery system. If we control the delivery system, it would be a different story, but we don't. We run nursing homes because the state law says we have to pay for them. For nursing home kids. Doesn't say we have to run a nursing home. It just says that we have to pay for it. And that's the reason why all counties run nursing homes. Because,
But I can tell you that that's the next level of attack.
yeah, absolutely.
And if you watch that meeting,
Yeah. They want to take they've said that the county should be out of the nursing home business. They come out and said this, legislators are saying this.
They want a 5-year plan to close.
They want a 5-year plan to close Riverside. Okay, which,
no, there's no level of
But-
support for that.
Right.
In the sense that there was no vote taken
Mhm.
but watch the meeting.
yeah, watch the meeting.
And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you'll that might give you a different perspective. Not everything you said is right. There's nothing in that meeting that's gonna convince anybody that you're wrong in anything that you've said.
Right.
But it might give you some perspective on the unfortunate side of this, which is the financial side of this. And what we tried to continue to do, remembering this is the only county-run hospice. And in New Hampshire. I don't know about I tried when we opened to learn from the National Association of Counties
Yeah, they can-
if there was any other ideas about how to run a successful hospice. They have a healthcare component, but George and I created the idea of allowing every hospice to admit. Because that's not done anywhere in the United States that I can find, or that I could find. And we thought that was going to be the key to having a successful operation that not only cares for people, but somewhat close to breaks even. And that was the pledge that we gave to the delegation back all those years ago when we took over Hyder. But here's the irony to all of this and how and what forces us to respond to that irony is that the delegation voted at that time unanimously for us to run Hyder. Now listen to the meeting and you'll see they mostly focus on Riverside because they don't realize that they're a combined budget. And they don't give us the opportunity to say it. They just talk on and don't ask, they just pontificate, from their bully pulpit. But what you and similarly, that's a right word. The same we've depended for the last several years to keep the taxes down and to be able to fund those out of box things that the commissioner talked about, based on revenue that the jail has produced for us. And that's no secret. Anybody who looks at the budget, they can see it. And a dozen years ago, obviously a bunch of different delegation members, because it about a quarter or a third turnover every year, voted to split one of the units in the jail for us to be able to take what was incompatible housing of levels of security. They voted unanimously for us to do that. And now it's totally turned around where they don't want us to do that at all.
At all.
After authorizing us to spend, and that's the impact. And I know that's not your point, and I don't want to diminish what you said, because what you said is 100% accurate. I don't want to diminish that at all. I mean, George and I, and I'm sure Commissioner Feliciano have lived through it in our own lives, and have come and always have appreciated everything that occurs at Hyder. It's just forces right now beyond our control that we're trying to manage, and we certainly haven't given up. We just
Okay, so that was going to be one of my questions, because I know your guys' hands are tied, but will you continue to speak on this issue?
oh, sure,
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely, and there might be
some other dynamics that are going.
there might be some other ways to remove
this. Right.
a piece of what you said about what then becomes I don't mean to make this sound flippant, but the default for where people will go. Okay, so please don't misunderstand that I'm saying that in a nasty way, but I mean that's in effect what you said. That there, if the hospital becomes the default, they're not going to get paid for their costs to operate a hospital. It costs a certain amount of billing per bed for hospitals to break even or whatever. And our hope is that there will be some thought about that. I can't say anything anymore because I'm I promised I wouldn't say anything, but there's considerations. So no, we haven't given up at all.
Sure. No question.
I just wanted to share a few things. My name is Holly Smith. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. I have been for many years. I work at Wentworth Hospice. I have been around to know the history and much of what you've described of the Hyder House through the years. My colleagues might tell you that I can be a feisty social worker, but I think this is a really important issue, and I think it's important to really listen. And I just want to thank you for your comments. And I have learned a lot about kind of what's going on now. Appreciate how it has been explained. I'm also a Dover taxpayer myself. But I am one of the people who is going to have to go out and share with families that I can no longer offer you Hyder. I have to cancel your respite stay. I am one of the people, there are many of us, other social workers, nurses, our directors, our managers, we're all very involved hands-on with our patients. And, much of the world doesn't have to think about death and dying until it happens to you or your family, and they don't always understand what it is that they might need in the future.
They don't care about it until it happens to them.
Right. And as a human, I do understand that. Some of that is just how we're wired as humans. But I mean, I was at Hyder yesterday, sitting with some of my colleagues over there, and they really were just devastated, which I'm preaching to the choir, but they were devastated for their patients and for their families. What happens at Hyder, you mentioned that it's God's work over there. It really is. When you walk in those doors, that is a sacred place. You see the walkway, where people have made donations and people's names are there. There are memorials. That isn't just, a brick and mortar building. So it really will be, there does need to be some sort of a solution. I really appreciate the complexities of everything that's being discussed here, but there really does need to be a solution, because we just can't have people at home dying uncomfortably. And sometimes in unsafe situations, I see it. My colleagues see it, people at home, alone, no family, no one to administer medications. No, there's only so much.
Mm.
It's a lot, so
It is a
I
lot.
really appreciate what you've shared. I think it is, I heard the news yesterday and that social worker in me was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah,
but
you know,
you just kind of have to cooler heads prevail and really trying to find the straight line through this. Because it sounds like there are things coming up even in the future with, the status of the nursing home itself. So,
Elections have consequences. People
yes.
don't understand that.
yeah, we are,
Elections have consequences, and this is a consequence. I hate to say it, but it's just a plain fact. It's a consequence when you elect individuals who don't believe in government at all. Okay, they don't believe that there should be any government. You need to listen to what Administrator Bauer said. You need to listen to those tapes. For the last few years, even when we went to build a new nursing home, the county commissioners were viciously attacked because we were trying to make things better. Comments about building Taj Mahals and you were trying to do this and that, and it was a signature project. I mean, all, and this, we shouldn't be doing anything for these indigents. Okay? Elections have consequences. And that's what we're dealing with right now. It's not that the county commissioners want to do this. We don't have a lot of choices. There are no choices left. And it's all because of who we've elected at the federal level and the state level based on their actions, not their rhetoric, but their actions. They say one thing, do something else. Okay. And I've never been that way. I try to shoot. I'm a straight shooter. I call a spade a spade. And we're just at a point where we don't have any choice. There's no choices. And now, if things change, we're going to continue to work, try to figure out another avenue. And that's going to have to involve the entire community.
The unfortunate part is that we couldn't get anything to change without taking this type of action. But maybe this type of action will encourage the change that needs to take place. To continue to provide the service.
to your point, I would almost, this hasn't really completely trickled out into the
No.
community
No.
yet, and
And it will.
and the community has, shared their outrage in the past.
They have.
And so I appreciate what you're saying. It really is unfortunate that it has to go in this direction.
Well, the other thing too is that unless there's some other way of creating some partnership.
Mhm.
Some partnership with the private sector, meaning hospitals and hospice providers. I mean, there is, I guess there's enough. If everybody just lifted a little bit, instead of having one person just carry all the weight, which in this case is the county. If everybody just lifted a little bit, it could probably continue its operation, but the money's gotta come from somewhere. It's just the reality that people want to get paid. If it was all volunteers, we wouldn't be sitting here.
And being a Dover taxpayer and a resident of this county, I don't want my county to be running in a deficit,
Of course not.
that is a real fact, right? We can't have our cake and eat it too.
True, right.
We have to kind of balance the reality of things. I hope to age here. We have a home and a daughter. We go through the school system and, that being said, I also lived many years in Massachusetts where there are more programs and it is much easier in other states to age there and, it's much more available,
Yeah, and those other states have broad-based taxes.
They have more I come from Massachusetts, right?
Massachusetts, right?
Right? But this really is highlighting that, taxes do serve a purpose for the collective good
There you go.
of everyone. They are not all bad. We don't you know, they're not all bad.
I'm with you.
people.
I'm with you. Yes, Susan?
Well, first of all, George and Ray, I know that this is very personal for both of you. But please don't think that this is your fault because it's not. I attended most of those budgetary meetings, like I attend most of your meetings. And was at that meeting that fateful night, sitting right beside you, right in front of you. And I looked back at both of you and we're on opposite parties. I deem myself the responsible Republican. And you guys got blindsided, not only by my party, but by your own party. And it was a horrible feeling to walk out of there because it was clicking in my brain automatically that it was going to be a default budget and that serious consideration was going to have to be paid to certain departments. How deep those actually go, we still don't know the answer to all of that. I kind of surmise that maybe there might be a public-private partnership maybe brewing in the background, but I don't know that. The other thing is that we just spent a considerable amount of money on Hyder House, I believe with the roof, with the fire suppression system and with the panic doors. I call it the panic doors, but the security doors or whatever. So where are we gonna go with that building? Are we going to try to contact a couple of real estate agents to maybe try to lease that out so that we can get some sort of revenue out of there for a period of time? And my other thing is how long is Hyder? Is this an immediate closure effective tomorrow, or is it a 2-week notice? Is it a 1-month notice, or haven't you guys gotten to that point yet?
We've gotten to the point where its closure is scheduled for April 18th. There's certain obligations we have to employees that go beyond that.
Bargaining.
Well, correct, 100% correct. And we've reached out to ask employees to let us know by the 10th of April about their interest in, we have certain number of open positions at Riverside. We've given the employees up until April 10th to tell us if they're interested in coming over to Riverside. And then we need to assess how that affects our operation and who we can assimilate and who we can't. So that's still in process, but
Can I just, and then there's also these employees, if they decide to terminate their employment with the county, there is that upfront expense of them for vacation time, sick time, that type of stuff.
would all be paid out.
Right, and is that going to affect, are we gonna, cause I know that we take out TANs and things like that to cover our bills. Are we gonna be, I mean, I'm shocked to learn today that we dropped that much in a Moody rating that fast. So there's multiple layers here.
The fortunate part about the Moody's rating, at least is when you understand the, BAA, part of it is for long-term borrowing and part of it is for short-term borrowing. So in terms of short-term borrowing, we still hold that A rating. It's the long-term borrowing, right, which we have, as you'd expect, no long-term borrowing plans. So that's where we would really be hurt.
Well, I was thinking, was that short-term or long-term? And I know short-term, we do take out the short-term TANs.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, crap, that's,
Well,
the other thing is,
it can have effect on it if it
will.
remains. If it remains, if it's not repairable.
or if we don't, we have an opportunity to indicate to lenders what we are doing, in response to that rating.
Right.
And that will hopefully convince them to continue favorable rates, short-term rates. You know, we've had some pretty good rates.
I've been here, I've
Yeah.
seen them.
And so we hope, not that it's a trade-off, but I mean, it's a factor of our overall operation. You know, this is one of the things that would be identified as a measure that we have taken to to steady the ship. And that's, as Commissioner McGuire said, this isn't the only thing that will occur, but it's it's certainly, the most notable, obviously.
Yeah, we went from a A3 rating to a Baa2. I know that's a lot of jargon to you folks.
It's basically 2 steps down.
It's 2 steps down. It's like if you went to get a mortgage for your house and they say, oh, your interest rate is going to be 6%. And all of a sudden they do a credit check on you and they come back and say, oh, I'm sorry. It's, we changed our minds. We'll loan you the money at 8%.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. And so I'm trying to put it in terms that you could, some simplified terms, but that's just what it is. And that's how it works.
But I want to swing it all back around
Right.
to know that's part of the back story. The major story is what you've said.
Right.
And I think it's important that that's how we all feel.
And we're gonna reach out, we are gonna reach out to the existing agencies and to the existing hospital, because you're right, the default is the hospitals, to see if there's any help that we can possibly get.
Private partnerships.
Yeah,
out there.
yeah, potentially. I mean, when we tried to do them in the past, like Ray said,
It's hard, or impossible.
well, it's not impossible, but they have their own, budget, considerations they're dealing with, from, as a result of federal reimbursements, state reimbursement, if it exists at all. They have their own budget pressures. So we haven't given up. However, if you think about the history of it and the fact that 2 nonprofits couldn't lost millions, and one of them was a for-profit and was subsidized by hospital operations, and it didn't work then. They decided to close it. They thought they could bring it in-house. The answers are all kind of the same. You need to pump more money somehow into the system. And how that gets pumped into the system is beyond our control, the county commission's control. It's beyond Ray's control. As much as we take it as a personal loss. Ray and I fought with state regulators, with federal regulators, when we first decided to do this, try something different, giving allowing the agencies to all flourish, and then we would back them up. It was a good plan. It worked in the beginning. But COVID changed the public's perception of institutions, and then as a result of that, we've had elections that have changed policy and reimbursement schedules, and it's clamped down on the healthcare delivery system. I'm hopeful that something can come out of that in some kind of shape.
There's another question too.
I'm sorry.
Hi, my name's Sally. I'm a Haida nurse.
Sorry, I recognize you.
Earlier you had said, that Riverside is going to renovate rooms and open, some like hospice beds.
From respite care and stuff. We've always done that in the past anyway.
Do you know how many beds you're gonna open? I'm low on the totem pole. I know everything goes by seniority with the county, so, I'm not hopeful that I'll be one of the people that get to move over.
We have openings at the jail too.
But, I'm just curious, like, is it gonna be a hospice unit that you're opening at Riverside, or like, how many beds do you think?
Well, I'm preparing that as we speak, and we're likely to do a presentation to the commissioners at their next meeting. So we're not quite ready yet.
Is that gonna help keep some of the Hyder staff?
That's the hope.
Yeah.
But we're gonna, we'll do a presentation and I'm working on putting it together.
We've asked them to put that together on unit 3. because we closed Unit 3 at the nursing home a couple of years ago. Well, it's been what, 3 years now, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Great. Um, because of the, the funny thing was prior to COVID, we had 150 people on a waiting list. And, Riverside was full. That doesn't exist anymore.
Voice.
Okay.
That, just to piggyback on that question and what you're talking about right now, maybe you could help me kind of square away one thing that I see from my perspective out in the community is a lot of our patients do actually want to go into a nursing home or express a need to go into the nursing home, or desire to go to hospice house. And we very often are not able to get in because there's a wait list.
And
And
regulations.
so I have the larger picture here, but it will be hard to square that away for people out in the public. You know, I will have people saying, when can they get into Riverside? When can they get into Hyder? You know, and so more beds, like from my perspective, there's not enough beds because there's
There's not
such
gonna
a
be,
need,
there's
you
not gonna
know?
be, I was told that I didn't know what I was talking about, but, with the baby expansion, the baby boom generation become, we have 10,000 people turning the age of 65 every day in this country. And we're gonna have about a 25 year period here where you're gonna have a glut of people. Baby boomers like me. They're gonna go through the system and they're gonna need services, okay, which is one of the main reasons why we wanted to build a new facility to make it more efficient. We had a plan to do that. It was rejected, okay? And now they're talking, and now they're not even, now they don't even want to do that. Now they want me to close it, which is absolutely against every moral fiber in my body. And so, and I know my colleagues feel the same way. Absolutely. So the healthcare system in this country is going to change dramatically. It's going to continue to change. It's because the baby boom generation is going to demand a service. The question is, what is it going to look like? That's what it boils down to. And because reimbursement rates have been reduced, and we have only the property tax to rely on to pay for these things, you're going to see this problem heat up. It's heating up now. It's going to get worse. It's just sheer numbers. It's just math. That's all it basically is. When you have 16,000 people in the county right now over the age of 65, and within a few years, within 5 or 6 years, you're going to have 50,000 people over the age of 65. You think about that. And the services they're going to need.
I think I'm about to have an anxiety attack.
Well,
As a social worker who is
Right.
People are asking me, I am the person sitting at the kitchen table with people, and so are my social work colleagues. And I can appreciate what you're describing and what's coming. And
I tried to prepare, right? We tried to prepare us.
But we're all wrong. We don't know what we're
We
talking.
don't know what we're talking about. We're all wrong. We don't know what we're talking about. Yeah, they don't have any, they say you're making this stuff up, and I'm not making any of it up.
I mean, it's simple facts.
It's just math.
And it's not us that are coming up with these numbers. It's regional planning does,
Population.
population
projections.
assessments.
I just have one more
Sure.
question.
Sure.
Do we know how many positions are open
Well, we
for
have,
Hyder staff to slide into?
We don't, we're working on that as we speak.
right.
When will we know? I mean, will we know before I find a new job or after,
We're working, I mean, that's one of the reasons why Jen's here,
Right.
and we'll be talking with the commissioners. Because it involves employees and stuff, we're gonna at least start by doing it in a non-public session and then make the information public as soon as we can.
We do have some openings in jail, if I remember right.
No, that's a
Bring up the jail.
different type of nursing.
Different type of nursing though, that's the thing. Palliative care is a subset that didn't exist 25 years ago, didn't have it. And it's a specialties, and there's gotta be another answer here. There just has to be another answer, but the pressure that we're dealing with right now is It's an ever evolving, changing delivery system that we have no control over. That's the problem. That's what's really driving this when you think about it. It's the massive changes to this at the state and the federal level. It's to how we're supposed to be doing business. And it's kind of like when you're a kid in the back seat of the station wagon and your dad says, sit down, and you want to jump out and go run around in the park. And dad keeps telling you to sit down. And that's what we have going on right now. We have the parent, which in this case, the state and the federal government, telling us, this is what you're going to do, and this is how it is. And whether you like it or you don't, you either sit down or something happens to you. But what's happening to us is the adjustment in rating and the political arguments regarding ICE, which we relied on heavily. We had $9 million set aside this year for ICE. That was going to go a long way to offset that deficit, the deficits of HIDR and the deficits of the nursing home. When we have people saying, get rid of ICE, get rid of ICE, get rid of ICE, we don't like what they're doing. Okay, well, guess what? There are just
Your ramifications.
ramifications to that, right? There are ramifications to losing that revenue. It's not, it's going to affect every department here. It's just not going to be HIDR. Every single department in this operation is going to be affected by these decisions. And I'm sorry that we have to make them. It's not something I look at lightly. It bothers me deeply. Jan, you have no idea. I've been talking to Ray for 2 or 3 weeks, trying to come up with solutions to these problems. Him and I are talking at midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure these things out. All for $10,000 a week a year, huh? So,
I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love working for the county, so.
you know, the county, we try to treat people right, and we just don't, the path is unclear. And if you think about it, I want you to think about this, the default position to the hospitals. Their path is unclear. Their path is unclear. There's too much turmoil in the system. There has to be some stability somewhere along the lines here. And we're just dealing in a tumultuous environment. And we don't know. I mean, I'll give you a quick example of this. I wanted to build the largest solar farm in our state here on county land several years ago. I wanted to be the first one in the door to build solar because there were changes in the federal system that allowed private sector to invest in it. And we were going to save $1 million a year. And we got a grant by the federal government to study. And the minute the administration changed, they pulled the grant instantly. Halfway through the process, they pulled the grant. Then, 2 months later, they said, oh, we changed our minds. You're back you get the grant back. But they wouldn't let us hire our own consultants. Where's that outfit from? Texas or Colorado or someplace we're talking to? They don't even know Colorado. They don't even know where New Hampshire is.
And Alaska.
In Alaska. Yeah, Alaska. Yeah,
And Alaska.
you were here for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't even know where New Hampshire is. But this is what happens when you have these changes in administrations and the changes in policy. Now, hopefully, like Ray said, this is going to raise the temperature a little bit with people and say, what are we doing here? Okay, what are we doing? Right? Now, it won't be us to make that decision. It'll end up being the legislature and Congress. But what are we doing? Okay, the turmoil. Now, when those folks end up in the hospital, now, you know, they're charging $10,000 a day for a room over there. They're only going to get reimbursed at the GIP rate of about $1,100. When that occurs, you can be rested assured that something's going to give. Something's going to give. I can't tell you what it is, but something's going to give. And if we have a building sitting over there, maybe cooler heads will prevail, and some resources by all of us lifting together cooperatively, which we're all in favor of. I've discussed this to my colleagues at nauseam, that if there's some other way of doing business, let's find out what it is. But in the meantime, because of the Moody's adjustments and the looming deficits we have, we're not capable of waiting for that solution. That's the problem I have. If I could wait another 6 or 8 months, but we don't have that luxury. We won't be able to make payroll. We just won't be able to borrow the money. And someone's going to give us the money. If they think you're at risk, they won't do it. But no different than if you lost your job and you went to the bank and asked for a loan. They said, well, how are you going to pay it back? And you go, well, gee, I'm not working right now.